I'm developing a character-based roguelite similar to Risk of Rain 2 that also has auto-firing weapons like Vampire Survivors. Currently the game has a plethora of items, but none of them actually do anything that interesting. We have 3 tiers of items in the game: common, rare, and legendary. Common tier items tend to be basic stat increases, and if you can't tell by the name, they are very common. You'll most likely have tons of these during a run. They include things like the energy drink that increases your speed, or the banana, which increases your XP gain. The next tier is rare items. These are either strong stat increases or they do something when you do something. For instance, dynamite, which has a chance to cause attacks to explode, or the feather, which allows you to double jump. Then there's legendary items, which are basically completely overpowered. This can be stuff like the vacuum module, which causes enemies to drop items when they die, or the ancient device, which periodically zaps nearby enemies, slowing them down. Now we do have a lot of items in the game, but per tier, there's a severe lack of variety. A lot of items do pretty similar things, and builds end up being the same every time. So let's change that. First is a little disclaimer. These are for the experimental build, so the models and icons look a little unfinished. And that's actually because I made them in Paint really quickly, like in less than a minute. Let's start with the new common items. We have the donut, which drops health when you interact with something. We have the fireworks, which were definitely not copied from a certain game. And lastly, we have Mr. Pig, which gives you credits when you take damage. Simple enough, and that's what common items are. Just simple mechanics that are easy to perform and easy to understand. These are probably going to be the first items that a player picks up in the game, so we obviously don't want to overwhelm them. Next up is the new rare items. The first one I made was the jump mines. Jump mines place mines at your feet when you jump. That's it. These mines take a second to charge, and then once charged, they will detonate when an enemy is nearby. There's also another item which upgrades these mines, but we'll get onto that very soon. The health monitor increases your damage when you're below 50% health. And while this one isn't that complex for a rare item, the boosts you can get with it can be pretty insane. So it definitely deserves this higher tier. The magic key lets you get more than one item from a single chest, but it only has one use per stage, meaning you better make sure you spend it on a large or legendary chest so you can get that extra loot. Now we're actually at the juicy stuff, which is the new legendaries. There's a good few new ones of these since the game previously only had 6, and some of them were pretty shit. Most legendaries aim to support a specific type of build, so that's what I kept in mind when making these new ones. Firstly, we have the Happy Drone, which is probably one of my new favourite items. He's this little guy who orbits you and zaps away enemy projectiles. You can stack him to get more zaps per second. And he's not really related to any builds, but he is super helpful on low health builds since he can stop a rogue projectile from ending your run. The Lucky Horseshoe lets you have more luck, and luck in this game doesn't mean better items from chests or anything. The luck actually affects the chances of an item doing an effect. So for missiles, they normally have a 5% chance to fire a missile, but the horseshoe increases that chance significantly. And that's all it does. That's why I didn't call the stat like luck or anything, because that could be a little confusing. Instead, it's called proc increase, which, that's technically what it does. The poison bomb is a pretty fun one and leans into a crit related build. Poison is a new debuff and it separates itself from stuff like fire by being infinite, meaning that once an enemy is poisoned, they are always poisoned. When you land a crit on an enemy, you spawn a poison cloud that poisons nearby enemies and also damages them. It has a 100% chance to inflict poison every time. So yeah, again, this is for high crit builds since if your crit's 100%, you are guaranteed to spawn this explosion every single time. The Phoenix Feather allows you to survive death, and that's it. There's no specific build this is good for, maybe low health builds in case you go too low and die, but most builds definitely benefit from having an extra life. They're obviously one use, so once you die, the item disappears, and extra stacks just give you extra lives. The golden stopwatch decreases the cooldown of all your abilities. Again, this is more of a general thing. It doesn't really benefit a specific build, but it really benefits characters who have abilities that deal massive damage, since you can just spam them more often. Stuff like the Rogue's Dagger Storm or Clanker's Punch. It is good to keep in mind that this does not affect any rage type abilities. Their cooldowns stay the same because of how generally powerful they are. And finally, we have the Explosive Modulator, which is the thing I mentioned earlier that upgrades jump mines. It increases the amount of missiles that are fired every time you fire one. This counts for fireworks and the satchel. It also makes mines explode into mini-mines. And finally, it increases both missile and mine damage by 100%. This item's pretty specific to a build that focuses on either missiles or mines, but it can be really powerful since it essentially doubles any damage you were going to deal. And that's it. That's all the new legendaries. The last thing I want to go over is a new tier of items that I made called cursed items. These items tend to be really powerful, but also have a big downside. The glass gauntlet doubles your damage and halves your health. Pretty simple. The leech damages you every 5 seconds, but gives your unhurt effects double the chance to happen. So let's say the leech damages you, and you have a guitar. The guitar now has an 80% chance to trigger instead of the default 40. This is great for any low health build since it can keep your health really low while not killing you. Lastly is the broken clock, which doubles your ability cooldown but halves your weapon cooldown. So that's all the new items in the experimental build of the game. There's also a lot of other stuff I haven't really mentioned, like the new UI, smelters, and the general cleaning up of the game. There's also a new stage you can check out. It's not finished yet, but it's going to be like a casino city with a giant slot machine. You can play the experimental build right now by downloading the regular demo, and then you go into the properties and change the beta to be the experimental option. Your saves, leaderboard scores, and everything else will stay the same in the official demo, so don't worry about losing any progress. Everything's unlocked by default in the experimental build, so you can truly test everything without having to grind out the challenges.